Hello and welcome to the Uncensored Match Build Up. We're here to discuss Liverpool's game against Chelsea this weekend after they secured their place in the Champions League final. So it's going to be an interesting one, obviously on the back of the big game last night. As Louie pointed out beforehand, we haven't lost in the league to Chelsea since November 2014. But this is going to be a big game. Fight for the top four. Still got everything to play for. What kind of team are you expecting from Chelsea?
I think Chelsea are just kind of going through the motions now. I think Conte is looking likely to leave at the end of the season, and they're just kind of playing for maybe the futures or maybe to try and get a move to a bigger club. They were going through a bit of a rut and they turned it around at Southampton, and since then they've been looking pretty good again. So it's all about now just making sure we get in there without really. I mean, it'd be great if we won, but without losing all 3 points, and just making sure that we can properly kill off the top four race.
Yeah, and John, they're 5 points behind us at the moment, but they have got a game in hand. We were just talking briefly then. You said, if we get a draw this weekend, then that'll be enough to see us through.
Yeah, they can only get 75 points. So if we get a draw there, then they can only get 73, and we'll have 73, a much better goal difference. So, that puts the season to bed. Then we can just think about the Champions League final and have a nice game against Brighton, and all have a party at Anfield next week. I'm a bit worried because obviously we've come off a big game in midweek. Chelsea have rediscovered some form in the last few weeks. I've watched a couple of their games. I mean, they had a really good win over Burnley. So they're going to be dangerous. So we're going to have to be on our game, I think. But I don't think a draw is beyond us, and a draw will do. I'm quite happy if we come away with a point, and that will achieve another target for us for the season, and just leave us with the Champions League to win, and then everything will be fine.
And then they've obviously taken advantage of the fact that Tottenham have had cup distractions in the FA Cup. Liverpool have obviously had Champions League distractions. Do you think that Chelsea are coming into this game with a bit of confidence, given the fact that, as John says, they have improved their form? Then now they can mathematically still qualify for the top four, and they were written off, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the cup final themselves, the FA Cup final, so they've got that to think about in 2 weeks' time. I think it is that whole. Once they've tried to close that gap, and they perhaps smelling a little bit of blood now because we've 2 draws in a row with the West Brom and Stoke stuff. But for me, you shouldn't have to really work to get motivated for this game. It's Chelsea, it's away, it's against one of the big six, it's one of the bigger games of the season. It's against a club that we all hate. Up there, they are up there with Man United for me. They've got some good players, but so do we. Salah will feel like he's got a bit of a point to prove. He's had a couple of quiet games. He'll want to go out and get a goal against Chelsea. Like he did, like he's done against Roma, and I think he scored against them in November. I have every bit of confidence that we're going to go out and put in a good performance. Yeah,
and what's interesting is the fact that because Man City have obviously stormed the league this season, people forget that Chelsea are actually the reigning champions. And
seems a long time ago.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And they're struggling now to get into Champions League football. But does that show just how far Liverpool have come this season in comparison to maybe Chelsea's stagnation, or do you think it's that Chelsea just underperformed?
I mean, people. I think because United won the Premier League a lot, people forgot how difficult it is to win it 2 years running.
Yeah.
And Chelsea have just shown us over the last 3 or 4 years that you can win the title, but winning it again the second time is much more difficult. Partly because your players aren't motivated as much, and they seem to get managers who don't last as well. Chelsea, so they've still got the basis of the team that were champions, and they are a very good side. They just don't seem to have had their head into it this season.
I think out of the top 6 teams, they had one of the worst summer transfer windows. I think they sold Matic to United and brought in Bakayoko, which didn't work. and they had the whole
That
thing.
was bizarre, selling Matic.
And obviously losing Diego Costa
yeah.
was
I think
strange.
Morata hasn't really worked either in the sense of replacing Diego Costa. And I think that was their issue, is that every other team pretty much got it right. I mean, besides Arsenal, pretty much got it right over the summer, and that's just left them like too far behind now.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you mentioned Morata there, because I think that Giroud might start on the weekend for Chelsea. I think he's been playing well for them. He scored some important goals, and I just think that his presence in Liverpool's defence, would be more likely to cause problems, and the way that Giroud plays.
He's very good in the air, isn't he? And he does cause problems. It's funny, isn't it? Because they tried to buy Llorente, didn't they? They seemed desperate to get someone who was good in the air, because Morata obviously isn't doing it for them. But Giroud is obviously a handful.
Yeah.
Hopefully Van Dijk will have no trouble with him. But
He poses a similar question to what we've been playing recently, though. Anyway, Ed and Dzeko, Rondon. I mean, Peter Crouch to some extent. Like, they're all big target men who can also play with the ball.
They're crying out for Dzeko. I think he'd be a great
I mean,
sign
against us, Dzeko was absolutely amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you could say Dzeko's an upgraded version of Giroud, couldn't you? He's got a bit more about him.
He was very unlucky to be at City when Aguero arrived and was in his peak, I think, because I think he's a great... I'd have him at Liverpool, I think, as a squad player. I think he'd be an excellent fit, I think. But, yeah, Chelsea are crying out for somebody like that. Yeah, I agree. I think Giroud, I think I would be more worried if Giroud started, because I think he just gets goals, doesn't he? He did against Southampton in the league game and in the cup, actually. Yeah, he's got a good goal in the cup. But in the league game in particular, he gets a chance, he does bury it. I think Arsenal were a bit daft to sell him, really, because as another option, a different style of play. I think he's as good as they come in that style of play.
Super sub as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And they've got Willian as well, who's absolutely fantastic. He doesn't always play for some odd reason, but if he plays, he's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Willian actually, because I think he's a player who's really stepped up in the last couple of weeks as well. I
mean, last year when they won the title, he hardly played. They played Moses instead. And I kept thinking, oh God, go and buy him.
Yeah.
He's another one of those players who got away, isn't he, like Salah? But this season he's played on more or less on a regular basis. But he's a real threat.
And what about Marcus Alonso? He made Team of the Year. He's what would you call him? A wing back. He's a wing back, but he really causes problems going forward, and he's got a great delivery.
He's strong and
very strong. And how do you think Liverpool are going to have to try and?
I think a lot of it relies on the midfield. We said this about Roma in the sense of like they had Kolarov bursting forward as well as El Shaarawy. We spoke about it with Real Madrid, where they're going to have Marcelo coming forward as well as Ronaldo. The same thing's going to be happening here, where whoever's at right back is going to end up against Hazard and more than likely Marcus Alonso as well. Hazard does tend to come inside more often, but it's doubling up on the player again. It's going to take a lot from the midfield to make sure that they don't pose as much of a threat as they can. And on the flip side, if Alonso pushes up, it gives someone like Salah the opportunity to stand up Rudiger, or bring a central defender out wide, and that's when it's Salah's territory, and he'll just do what he does.
Yeah, I mean the danger would be that they outnumber us in midfield. And they're 3 to 5 City did it, didn't they? They overloaded midfield, gave us problems for about half an hour, and then we had to sort of bring Mane back into midfield. And we may well have to do that again, really, try and keep a grip on them.
So the lads are going to be doing a live show the day before the Brighton game, which is obviously the last Premier League game of the season. So you can get your tickets online for that. Make sure you don't miss it. It's going to be fantastic. So now it's time for our team selections. So, I mean, I think it's a little bit easier this time round given the fact that we've had so many injuries. So I think the team pretty much picks itself. But let's start with you, Ben. Who do you think is going to start against Chelsea?
Showing this too? Yeah, hello. The only change that I've made.
Made up change.
Is just Klein for Trent, because Trent's been playing a lot of football recently. He's not really related to his performance last night. I don't think he was. That's not the reason I'm dropping him. I just think Klein probably does need some more minutes to build up fitness if he's fit. Gomez seemed to have picked up an injury at the weekend. That's why he didn't travel for the Roma game. So I that's the only reason I'd make a change. Other than that, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We've only got 3 midfielders at the moment available to us, so what can you do there? The front 3 pick themselves, and I suppose the other option would have been maybe a Klavan for Lovren, but I'd rather have Lovren personally. Yeah. So I think that's
pretty solid. What about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, I could be accused of being lazy, so I haven't put Klein in because I couldn't be bothered. But
so
the fact is, I do think he'll play his best side because it's like the last big Premier game of the season. You get a result at Chelsea, you've achieved your target of Champions League football next season. So I think he'll go for it. So, and I think this is his best team. So.
Yep. What about you, Louie?
Yeah, exactly same to you. I brought in Klein right back. He does need the minutes. If we can start getting him fit again, he's going to be massive for us next season. I think. I thought when we bought him, I thought that's right back sort of for the next 5 or 6 years. So if we can get him back to how he was, then we're fine. The only other one was maybe Lallana, because I saw he was in the squad to Rome, wasn't he? He wasn't in the 18, but you think, I know it ain't the start 11 prediction show, but he could be on the bench.
Maybe.
Possibly make an impact off the bench or something, maybe 20 minutes. But
if we can get him on.
Yeah.
There was that game in November where we couldn't get him on and then they scored.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So it's just a team that picks itself, it's down to the bare bones.
So basically, don't try and get Lallana to come on because then they'll score. Yeah, I've gone for the same as Ben and Louie. Sorry, John, you're on your own. Yeah.
It's all right. I'm used to being right.
I've gone for Klein over Trent simply for the fact that Trent's going to have a lot of running to do in the next couple of weeks. He's obviously been playing right back pretty much by himself for the last couple of weeks, so he could do with a bit of a rest. And also, I do think that Klein's defensive strengths, i.e., he's probably better at dealing with crosses and set pieces than Trent, I would argue. Might suit better against a Chelsea team who probably likely to play more balls into the box. So that's why I've gone with Klein. It was tempting to maybe give Robbo a rest, but he had a lot of rest at the start of the season, so I think he'll be absolutely fine to play the next 3 games.
No calls from Mignolet, no?
No.
No.
Right, that one.
Yeah.
I must admit, after the Roma game, I'm less convinced by Karius.
Yeah,
to be
he
honest.
did struggle a little bit.
But I certainly wouldn't bring Mignolet back in ever.
No, we've done enough chopping and changing, haven't we, with keepers? So, yeah, fingers crossed. That's it. We'll just finish it on predictions for the Chelsea game. Go, Ben.
I can see it being low scoring. I can see it being 1-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1-1 for me.
I was going to say 1-1. I'll go 3-3.
I mean, I'm going to say 1-1.
So.
Yeah, 3-3. Fingers crossed. That'll be a good game. That. Hat trick for Salah. Get the golden boot ticked off.
You will come back now when it's 3-3 and ask me for the final again.
You just like being right, don't you?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Nice one. Well, thanks for joining us again. We'll see how it goes on the weekend, and we'll catch you, for the day before Brighton for that live video with the lads. We'll see you then.